My name's Heidi Cornell. I have testified before you in previous years on this same topic, so you may remember. I'm a 23-year veteran of the United States Air Force. I was raised here in Connecticut and returned to my home state after retiring from the Air Force several years ago. I come here today to request your consideration for exempting 100% disabled veterans from property taxes. It seems that this is a bill that has been raised in previous years. I've testified about it before, and it never gets passed, but I think we really need to keep trying. I know we provide educational benefits. Senator Austin, you brought that up last year when I spoke on this, and I'm currently taking advantage of those. I think it's great. But our 100% disabled veterans aren't likely to be taking advantage of getting a new degree at this point. A 100% disability rating means that your disabilities interfere at the same percentage as for your ability to work. So these are veterans who sacrificed the most, and due to their service-connected disabilities, they probably cannot work and earn an income to afford the property taxes that we see here in Connecticut. You've also heard this from me before, but Connecticut is still, I think, behind most states when it comes to property tax exemptions for their veterans. 39 states give significantly greater tax exemptions. It kind of varies among the states. And currently now, up to 21 states are fully exempting their 100% disabled veterans from property taxes. So Connecticut has one of the lowest veteran populations in the country, also one of the highest property tax rates in the country. What I'm talking about, and really I just wanted to keep this down to the 100% disabled veterans to begin with, because I feel like it's kind of hard to push the whole thing at once. I would like to increase benefits for everyone. But what I'm talking about is just 1/10% of the population here in Connecticut. And meanwhile, while property taxes have been continuing to rise, our laws have remained the same for decades, as far as I can tell. The law currently allows for a 100% disabled veteran to receive a $3,000 deduction off of their property's assessed value, which at the average Connecticut mill rate equates to about $100 a year. And I don't feel like that's enough. So I'm requesting your support for this small group of men and women who have sacrificed so much. I think it's a small price for Connecticut, but an extremely meaningful one to veterans who, with such exemptions, I think would be able to stay in their homes and might not otherwise be able to. I thank you for your time, consideration, and your service to our state and veterans.
Thank you so much for coming before us. With your statement in regards to the taxes and how little it is something that we've been discussing a great deal recently. Something Senator Olson has been working on for years that just is not able to get over that cliff. We're hoping with the change of dynamics of the committee that, this is something we may be able to do this year.
I do want to say also that last year I looked over that fiscal analysis they did. I think it was really very overestimated, so
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd maybe like to address that at some point. But
Well, thank you for that,
thank you.
Senator Marks.
Yeah,
Chairman.
thank you for coming again and testifying. So I have asked OLR to do a report. She reached out to every municipality, trying to find out how many 100% disabled vets they have, what each municipality is currently offering, because some do give more tax exemption than others do. And then this did pass out of veterans last year, and then it died in finance. So I'm hoping that after we get this information, that then we are able to have a public hearing with the veterans, with planning and development, and with finance, because it's the cognizance of all three committees that we can really all sit and listen to the same testimony and be able to make a coordinated, good decision, because it's definitely what we hear from the vets the most. If you go to a coffee house, it's what you're going to hear. I just need to have a little bit of data in front of me. I think we need to be data driven, and that's what I have asked OLR to do. And I'm hoping that we can move on with this in a very, detailed way to see how it will affect municipalities, but also to see how the vets really do need it. So I appreciate your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Representative Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did some of that. I look forward to that research. I would be more apt to support this, or probably support it 100% if the state was to fund that and reimburse the towns for that lost revenue that they have, because we already have a lot of mandates here across the board, but even in veterans. In my hometown of Stafford, I went to the assessor's office and I had her run the numbers for what our net revenue loss is for the tax exemptions that we already have for veterans, which was $182,000, and we are reimbursed $21,000 by the state. So already at a net loss of revenue in my hometown of $160,000. So it's significant, and that's just in a small town of 11,500 people. I think my town does a little bit more than some of the other towns, so that could be skewed. But I think we need to talk about funding, and the state, we have a little bit more money in our coffers than some of the local towns do. So I would be on board with this if the state were to, reimburse the towns for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Olson?
Thank you. So, relative to the data of this, I've been working all summer on the issues relative to 100% permanently and totally disabled veterans. Most municipalities don't separate that out on their tax rolls.
Right.
They only have it down as a certain percentage.
Right, they're grouped by.
And it's not all of the, all municipalities have it separated out by the exact percentage. And so most recently, the numbers that came back from the federal government, which is the one that gives us the rating, for 100% permanently and totally disabled veteran, different than just 100%, which may go up and down, but 100% permanently and totally disabled is less than 1,200 in the whole state.
That makes sense.
And so that is something that, looking at that, so if we're starting at any of the tax exemptions, I think that starting with that 100% permanently and totally disabled veteran, and then going town by town, we've started researching town by town. If we know that you have 100% permanently and totally disabled, we're calling nursing homes. How many veterans are in your nursing home that's in this particular town? And say that person is 100% permanently and totally disabled. They are by the federal government assigned to that town because that's where they live. But they're not getting charged any taxes.
Right.
And so the real number on taxation relative to 100% permanently and totally disabled, that definition right there is something that we can quantify and is not that expensive. So, and I appreciate everybody's comments on this, but I do think that, and I understand that municipalities are under a lot of pressure, but this is 100% permanently and totally disabled as a result of your service.
Right.
Not because Kathy Austin got into an accident one day and she's disabled. No, this is somebody who wrote that check, was damaged as a result of their service, and I think that there should be skin in the game from every governmental section. So, at the end of the day, it's really not as expensive as what people have said, and probably by mid-December, we'll have the exact dollar amount that it would be.
Okay, great.
And it's really not that much. And now, I think then we should look at different tiers. There's something that I think that in today's world, where we have less than 1% of the population that's taking advantage of military service, we have to look at ways to boost up our military service. And what does that military service do for us? Well, that military service is currently serving in the seas off of Israel and Gaza. And that military service is off the seas of Ukraine. And we live in a country and a world that is increasingly putting a number of pressures on our military men and women, in particular because those that are in the National Guard or the reservists are being called up at unprecedented levels, unprecedented levels. And that doesn't take into account what's happening in Taiwan. So, I mean, I think that, I guess I look at this in somewhat a different way, that when people are talking about the tax dollars, if we can keep a 100% permanently and totally disabled veteran in their home because we're helping them out with the tax exemption, I think that we actually owe it to them. And you know, I've looked at a number of tax exemptions that are for veterans. I could talk chapter and verse on the research that I've already done on this and the data that's out there. But I think that looking at this is what we should be doing. And I think some states have already done it, but every state should do it. We have an obligation, just a straight out obligation. So, you know, so I'm appreciative of people coming up and testifying, and I think there's a lot of great ideas. But any person who served our country and didn't know what was going to happen at the end of that day now knows what it is, and I guess it's just somewhat personal to me. I really think it's personal, and so I think that that's something that we actually have to do. We just have to get it done. So again, I thank you for coming and appreciate your comments. Thank you,
ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Gordon?
I won't speak for long. I just want to thank you for coming. Certainly, in my 13 towns I represent, I'm well aware of a lot of veterans, including those who unfortunately are near or at 100% disability. Some of them I actually do take care of as a doctor. And I look forward to learning more about what each town is able or not able to do. But as we've heard, certainly as a way to make certain we're looking after our veterans after their service, especially those, as you mentioned, who have suffered 100% disability. Certainly look to see what ways then the state might be able to provide that support to the towns. If indeed the number is small or financially it's not big, then the state of Connecticut would seem to be able to do that and use that as a way to help keep the veterans, not just in this state, but in the communities that they want to live in. So I look forward to seeing more about this data. I've been learning more from my own town, some of these drilling down to these specific details, the exact number of veterans that might fall into this category, the dollar amounts. So I look forward to seeing what this committee and other committees do wrestling with the issue. But I would want to make a point that at the end of the day, I think this would be something then that if we feel very strongly about from a policy point of view, and I very much do want to see what I can do to support veterans, then certainly what the state is able to provide to fund that. And I look forward to seeing those numbers. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate all of you doing this research. It's great. And having this today, this is really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you also. And I just, from the day I took over being co-chair, this was a goal. And, it's something that, I don't want to see tossed around with funding being just, simply the states or simply the municipalities. If push comes to shove, I would like to see both be responsible if need be, because this has gone on too long. to go back and forth on that specific issue with the low numbers that we're finding that we have for 100% PT. The disability is just, I just don't think that we need to just keep entertaining it. So I'm really looking forward to these numbers. And just to take note, not all of them have property.
Right, I would submit that probably fewer of them own property than the average rate
Correct.
in Connecticut.
So I think that's definitely something that, is going to be going to have to be added to it. So, I'm just willing to try and make sure that we swiftly come to some agreement, whether or not it's individually the state's responsibility or the municipality's responsibility or both. We're going to have to decide. Representative Vale?
Thank you. I ever wonder, how come we never hear about giving 100% disabled veterans 100% income tax break? I'd be all for that. Like, I don't understand why we're going after the property tax. It might be a little bit more substantial. So, maybe they don't, it doesn't apply to them, but, I was just curious.
Senator?
Because,
Right.
because the most onerous tax that we have is property tax. That gets people to stay in their homes. And an income tax exemption often does nothing because they're not receiving a paycheck. Because they're 100% permanently and totally disabled, which by its very definition means that they can't have a job. That's by its very definition. And so that's why we're not looking at income tax. We're looking at something to keep people in their homes where they have lived, make them comfortable, make sure that they have a number of things. But that's why we could do it, but it would be a meaningless number because people that are 100% permanently and totally disabled can't work.
They don't have investments?
Most of them don't have investments because most of them couldn't work when they came back to get investments because they were hurt during their service.
And
You
if
know,
if it's such a small amount, I don't see why the state couldn't chip in. So that's something we need to discuss further. So
And you and I, Representative Vale, have had this discussion, but we find it okay to give a $2,000 exemption off of property taxes for volunteer firefighters. We
and
can
what's the difference? What
certainly
does
find
one
it-
have to do with the other?
All right,
It has it
as
has
the
nothing
chair-
to do with
as
it. You
the
use that
chair-
every time.
As the
and
chair.
it makes no
can
difference.
You stop for a minute, please? Thank you. All right, we're here for the veterans, not to go back between one another. All right, so please, let's listen to the veterans. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
We
sir.
appreciate you coming before us.